this summer, because the rest of us have just kicked off our summer. The rest of us are, looking forward to a 4th of July where a decent number of people are vaccinated and we can get back together. We are looking forward to a situation where where workers start going back, where as UI, drifts out and people start finding their jobs again and places start to open up again. There's one of the things about the lag in people going back to work is that this idea that you should take or have to take a temporary job because your UI runs out before the company that you used to work for is back up as far as demand or output to hire you back is sort of ridiculous and creates this, for a huge part of the workforce. I wanted, there was we talk about on the $15 minimum wage across the country and how possible it is and the back and forth about this. But the number of workers who are, getting, getting paid an hourly wage. The ones that work at minimum are less than 1 million at any given time. You're talking about, 1.2 million, some vacillation to that, of people who get paid on an hourly level. The people who get $7.25 or less, and again, if you're looking at the tax properties of tipped workers, for example, making closer to, when you average it out, about $15 an hour or $17 an hour, depending on the level of the restaurant, and that's definitely a factor. And taxes show that. And while it's not an enormous amount of money, it isn't $7.25 for tipped workers, that kind of thing. But the number of people who are getting that hourly wage at minimum wage is an important number, but a low number compared to what people think it is. They think every hourly wage worker in the country is constantly fighting to get above or at minimum wage or stay at minimum wage or get just above it, when in reality, the vast majority of them make a lot more than that, right? It just in general. And one reason why a lot of states or whatever will fight the idea that we want a $15 minimum wage is because the people who are making above minimum wage that are making $15 to $20 now for a managerial position at a restaurant or something like that, or a little more, are going to look at, well, if the servers are making 15 now, I need to make 35 because I'm overseeing all these folks. I'm organizing shifts. I'm still having to deal with customers. I'm doing all this other stuff, and yet I'm going to make the same as somebody who just started working here a week ago, who may quit in 3 weeks, but they're going to make nearly what I'm making. It doesn't seem fair. So they're going to ask for it. And that drives wages up. And that's the big fear that they have, right? And it's a reasonable fear to have. And that's why some states are slowly working their way into it so that those higher wage jobs that are above that $15 minimum wage, as they start rising, it's at a pace that the businesses can keep up with without having to lose all their bigger staff or having to bring up people who aren't ready yet into management because they'll work cheaper and blah, blah, blah. So all that stuff is a big factor. We hear about this all the time. And again, a big portion of these workers would effectively be Republicans, Trump voters, if you look by volume anyways. Exercise the number of 17-year-olds, the youth vote that leans Democratic in their mind that doesn't vote yet, and minority voters in certain areas who work in these places. Still, the volume is not just in those areas, and and this is kind of an ongoing thing with Republicans. This is the volume of these workers and the overlap with the Trump voter is a curious effect, considering Trump is a second-generation slumlord who wouldn't hang out with any of these folks if his life depended on it most of the time. He was grossed out that he had to start shaking hands with them again at the when the pandemic was coming to an end. That was his big concern at rallies. He was going to have to he was going to have to make physical contact with these people he considered gross but necessary to to getting voted in. Now, I'm curious, as people start going back to work, there's a lot of these folks who are, there are minimum wage jobs that are opening up, or even, and there's a lot of talk about how they're already starting to pay $12, $15 an hour for jobs that were $10 an hour, before the pandemic, but just to get workers back, because the demand is there for servers. The demand is there for delivery people. The demand is there for the people who don't necessarily have to know how the whole business runs or operate or control, shifts, or accountants in the business. It's a mom and pop, so there's 3 people running it and stuff. But they need people doing the actual daily work of the job. That doesn't take a long time for them to show somebody how to do it. They need more of those folks. What they aren't ready for is a second accountant. What they aren't ready for is a second manager, because they can't fill the server positions yet, because because UI is better in some cases, or those servers are the people that they would want to come in, because demand is so high, is beyond actually how many people they had before. They had 10 workers before the pandemic. Now they need 12 or 15 because of delivery and because of how things shifted during the pandemic, and people are still coming out of that. And now they've got supply orders that they have to fill for those kind of things, but they just don't have access to there's more demand for those workers, people who can, work in retail, work in factory settings and those kind of things. But the demand is not enough for them to call back in their PR staff, their advertising, any of the other aspects of the business that had higher employment, more steady jobs, salaried positions, or higher hourly wage. They're outsourcing a lot of those jobs and bringing them back on temporarily as contractors for limited periods of time. And so those folks are like, well, I'm not going to take half my job back. I'm going to ride out my UI until you're at the level where you can hire me back to where I was, because I don't need that kind of instability. I don't need you to start doing that. I lose my UI, and then it's another 6 weeks before I can get it back, and then I've lost 6 weeks of that because it's ebbing and flowing, because things are in fits and starts right now. Maybe by the fall, everything will be fine. Maybe by the fall, there'll be some stability. You can hire me back to my job. And that is happening right now. And as that's happening, the crowd of people, the voters for Trump, the folks that would go to these big rallies, especially during COVID, that had this paid vacation from their just above grunt level job, that are showing up at the rallies, and that are going to start to diminish as those people have better things to do. They're going to go back to their job. Idle hands being Trump's workshop. These folks are only going to be available for a couple of more weeks to go to these rallies. By October, when Halloween comes around, they're going to want to be doing family stuff. By Christmas, they're going to be, more focused on Black Friday than, I guess Trump's White Day or whatever he would be doing on, as far as the rallies go. So we'll obviously keep an eye on this and hope to go to one of these things before they die on the vine and report live, because it would be hilarious.
That would be insane.
Yes, it would. We'll just do a live video feed from there. It can't be worse than what I'm dealing with right now. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. It's the House Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide. And I think, did we get back in sync? Are we out? It's back, but still out of sync. Damn it. I don't know what that is today. It's so weird. It might be the NDI thing. It just might be. Hold on one second. Let's try one last thing as I do this. And maybe, just maybe, we'll try this. Maybe the one thing that weirds it out. All right, so there's you. I'm going to take that away. I'm going to add.
Do not disassemble.
Yeah, screen cacher. This. I'm going to add that. I'll do this here. Now I've got to move this below that. And then Move it this way. And then I don't know if the NDI on Skype might have been the reason. And then, yeah, there's a wrench
What
in
does
the mechanics.
NDI stand for?
It's Skype's, and it's a codec for getting video into streaming software and other